Hi, and welcome to the Research Room, a space to make research by the people for the people.
Perfect synergy.
And today I'm going to continue on with romantic relationships. This week I'm going to be talking about support. Last week I was all about how can you argue better with your partner, but now let's focus a little bit more on some positive things. So maybe your partner is going through something. Hopefully you're not arguing with them at this point. Hopefully you're actually doing something to support them. And so there's one important concept that might really predict who's able to support their partner in a good way and who's not supporting their partner in such a good way. And I mean, I'm sure you can already imagine, there's so many reasons for why, this might be important, right? Like, support is so huge when it comes to relationships. And it could be very small things that maybe you want support with, or maybe that you need to support your partner with. Like, maybe they are running around and they're late for work and they can't find the car keys or something, right? Like, something simple as that, giving that kind of support. What do you do? Do you proactively help them? Do you remain positive and optimistic, or do you degrade them while you're trying to look for the keys? Same thing goes for bigger things, right? So I mean, that could be something more oh, I don't know, maybe someone died in their family, and you need to now support them there. Maybe they just got diagnosed with cancer. How do you end up doing this support process with them? And that's gonna be such a hard thing, right? So having this other skill that I'll talk about in just a little bit, I think that's going to help maintain that balance between you and your partner and keep things positive and not so negative. So I guess when it comes to this, yes, there's a lot of other things that could potentially predict support, right? There's things like how connected you are, how happy you are in the relationship, how trusting of your partner are you. Also, even things about yourself, right? So your own personality, how mentally well you are as well. I mean, if you are going through some things, then that's going to be very hard for you to now make space and support your partner. So all these things, of course, are great and would predict how well you are supporting your partner. But there's one thing that I think kind of comes before all of these things. Or even if it doesn't come before all these things, it could definitely change all these things. And so that thing is called romantic competence. And I don't necessarily like this name of romantic competence. I think if you ever have to say to somebody oh, you're low in confidence, that doesn't seem like a great thing to be saying. That's a very condescending thing to have to say to somebody. But that's the research term that's out there. So romantic competence, there's three things that come with this. And maybe you can see why that is going to then help these support processes and all these other things as well, right? Like things like trust and satisfaction. If you have these three things, and they're kind of these three skills, I would say, if you have these three skills, then you are going to be much more able to show up for your partner. So these three romantic competence skills, they are, first one is insight and learning. So that is just simply, are you able to learn from your previous experiences? Or do you keep doing the same thing over and over again? That could be within that relationship itself, or it could be from your previous relationships that you had before this current partner. Have you learned oh, every single time I do this, my partner seems to get upset and for good reason. Do you actually change that, or do you just keep doing it? There's also mutuality. So that's the second one. This idea of cultivating a sense of mutuality. And that is just saying that you can respect yourself, you can respect your partner, and you can also respect the things that are happening between you two. So if you're able to do that, if you're able to remember that it's both of you in this relationship, then that can be very helpful, and not just thinking about your own needs and then degrading your partner's needs, or vice versa, neither of which are healthy balance to have in your relationship. And then the last one is a very individual kind of thing, which is all about emotional regulation. So actually, even the podcast episode from last week could speak to some of these emotional regulation sorts of things. That was talking all about mindfulness, and how mindfulness can keep you from just outright screaming and yelling at your partner, and helping control yourself in the moment when you're arguing with them. So same thing happens when it comes to support. If you're going through other things and you're able to regulate your emotions, then you're much more able again to show up for your partner and like do what's right in that situation. Um, these are the three things for romantic competence. And the research has shown, I'll just very quickly say what the research has shown, that romantic competence leads to, or not necessarily leads to, we haven't seen that just yet, but it does predict. People that are higher in romantic competence tend to be more positive when it comes to giving support, and also less negative. So both of those things are important, right? Because you could potentially be both positive and negative when you tend to do these things, but it's good that it's more positive and less negative. But then there's a second thing here, which is like, it's something that I think people sometimes kind of forget, that like, it's not just up to your partner to like support you all the time. Like you aren't just like entitled to their support. They're still another human. Like they still, and like they, I mean, they, of course they like you, and like they want to be here with you, and they want to be there for you, but like you can't just like treat them like trash when you're trying to do this, right? Like you need to also do this in a positive kind of way. So how do you actually seek support in the first place? Are you being positive, or are you kind of being negative? And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through 4 different examples, a positive and negative example of providing support, and a positive and negative example for seeking support. And I want to use a couple of well-known people for this as well. One of which I think has possibly a very positive relationship. I don't know like the ins and outs of their relationship. And then the other one is a very negative relationship. And I mean, we kind of get to see the negatives of their lives. So the positive version, I'm going to be using Viola Davis and Julius Tenen. They are a married couple. And maybe you don't know all like what's happening with the relationship. Like I don't know like how in the eye she really is with all of that, but from what I've gathered, it does seem to be a very good relationship. So I'll use some of their like life experiences here. And then on the flip side, I'm going to turn to a TV show that Viola Davis is also on, which is How to Get Away with Murder, or at least was on, right? Like that show has ended at this point. And so this is going to involve Sam and Annalise Keating, which is it's Viola's her character, who she was married to during the show, and they did not necessarily have the best of relationships, right? So I'm going to go ahead and get into these examples here, and for these examples, I mean, I think you'll also see like I could very much take up an acting career based off of this. Like I don't know like why I haven't yet at this point, but you'll see in just a little bit. Like I'm gonna act these out for you, and you're gonna be very like enthralled, and like you'll see the scene I think really just unfold before you. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this, and maybe you can also tell me like how good my acting is. Maybe primarily focus on that. I mean, hopefully also get something out of this like psychologically, but like the acting part, right? So I'm gonna read some lines here, and hopefully that's gonna help you understand this whole idea of how romantic confidence can really be enacted in these just kind of everyday situations. So first example here, we have a positive example of providing support. This will start off with Viola kind of just like saying some things that she's going over, and Julius is going to come in, provide that support for her. So here we go. I don't know what to do with my career. I just have a lot of anxiety about my decision to move here. And so Julius chimes in, wow, I hear you. You're definitely going through a lot, but thank you for telling me. Tell me more. And so Viola says, I don't have any money. I have bad credit. I hate driving in LA. It just sucks being out here. And I don't know what to do. And so Julius comes in. You're not alone in this. I went through something similar when I first came here in the industry. And you know what? We'll find a way. We'll find a way through this together. So how about this? Let's try to prop each other up. I've seen your acting skills, and I actually like I have quite a bit to learn myself. So I honestly think that you could probably teach me a few things about acting. And so end scene, right? You can hold your applause till the end. What you can see here is that Viola, reaching out for support, obviously is distressed and kind of anxious about some stuff. And I mean, a pretty like life decision here, a pretty big life decision here. And so Julius kind of like makes that space to allow her to see herself as this positive being and not just like as this person that's like overwhelmed by everything. That you have something to offer here, and that's something great to do, especially in this case of like anxiety of like, did I do the right thing? Am I gonna make it? Like all that stuff. It's like it's providing these like hard facts, basically, right? And like I mean, you're literally behaving in such a way that like you can show them, hey, like you obviously you're great at this. Like you believe in yourself a little bit more, right? Like I mean, don't say it like that, right? And so I mean that's why I'm not giving support here. But Julius in this case, I think did a great job of just kind of opening up that space and like very much allowing Viola to just kind of see herself for the greatness that she is. And I mean, I think we would all agree that she's very great, right? So that's a positive example here. Let's go through a negative example. And so this is going to be with Annalise and Sam. Kind of similar situation though. And let's see how differently this other one goes. So Annalise is going to start with, I don't know what to do with my career. I just have a lot of anxiety about my decision to move here. And Sam comes in. Oh, wow, you've been going on and on about this for a while. Haven't you figured it out yet? And so Annalise then says, I mean, there's just so many things though, my career, my credit score, even the little things like simply driving in LA. And so Sam says, I don't know how to help you anymore. This is really starting to impact my own life. I can't give up my career just to help you. Also, I'm tired too, like I've had a long day at work, like doing things and stuff. Go help yourself. And so yeah, I think you can also see like how differently that situation has played out now. Same ask basically from the person asking for support here, but the partner in this case, very different response. And so let me go through why or why not this kind of worked, right? So first, I think is this idea of mutuality, which I kind of mentioned before, right? That this idea that, hey, we're here together, we can help each other out, and also while still respecting each other, right? Like just because I have my own goals doesn't mean my goals have to now like trump your goals or vice versa. And so Julius, in this case, that's very much what he did. He was like, hey, like I also want to act here. Like you have something to offer. I want to be able to help you as well. So I think that this is going to be a great way to like go through this process together. And that's, of course, you're bringing each other closer, right? Like you're being more connected. You are showing that like, hey, like I've heard you, like you've given the validation of like, yes, everything that you're feeling, of course, like it makes sense. And like even that empathy that like, hey, I've kind of been through this before. That's all showing that like, hey, like we're in this together, right? Like it's not just you here. Rather than Sam, Sam to Annalise, which is really just like the polar opposite. That he's basically saying like, hey, like I have my own goals here. Like you stay in your lane, I'll stay in my lane. Like I've already tried to help you. Like you are a lost cause. Where is the mutuality there, right? Maybe the other thing that's happening with Sam is that like, I mean, he's letting the rest of his day really take over here. He's tired, as he says, and that's really detracting from his ability to be there for Annalise. Sam lets his tiredness turn into like sort of anger and like distress toward her. And so yeah, I mean he can't actually help her in this case. So those are two things that like Julius in this case be more romantically competent of the two, whereas Sam was less so. And so we can see an example of positive support provision versus a negative support provision. Okay, so then we have this other one. And this is going to be for how to ask for support. Just as important, right, as providing that support is being able to ask in the first place. So we have two more examples here. And so this time it's going to be Julius who is asking Viola for some help here. And let's see how this goes. So Julius asks or starts saying, the film industry is really starting to get to me. All these meetings I go to, they just aren't meant for me. They aren't meant for people like me. The people in these meetings, they don't look like me, they don't act like me, and they don't have the experiences that I've had to have. They don't want to open up opportunities for others like me either. It's just hard sometimes, and I would really appreciate your insight on this. What do you think we can do about it? And so, as you can imagine, that leaves it very open and very like positive. Like, hey, I mean, he even like kind of slipped in like a compliment here. Like, I appreciate your insight. Like, yeah, you have something of value that you can add to this, right? And so Viola, I think would like take that, right? Like I think she would go ahead and say like, yes, like, hey, these are some of my thoughts. And I think honestly, she would probably take some like practical steps here. So maybe she would like share something about like, again, what can we do together? What is this like mutuality sort of like aspect, especially since they are in the same sort of profession? Like you can really start to do something like that. So maybe she would even suggest creating their own company together and having those positions so that they can support each other and not have to deal with the rest of that industry that as we know, very well takes opportunities away from others and make sure that there are other certain people that always get opportunities. But again, that's a very different episode than this episode. But there's those practical steps. Viola might also take some emotional kind of steps that might clear some of that sadness Julius is feeling in this moment. He's very much in his own head and like in his feelings about all this. Hopefully, Viola could do something to ease that over and comfort him, and then move on to something a little bit more practical. So this is like a very like genuine way of asking like, hey, you're really focusing on yourself, how this is making you feel. If your partner is competent when it comes to romantic things, I think they will go ahead and like, I mean, sort of take that bait and like support you and see you for where you are and like meet you there. This doesn't always have to happen though, right? There are people that are not necessarily romantically competent, and I think we'll take this in a different direction. When it comes to asking. So again, let's go ahead and go back to Annalise and Sam. And in this case, Sam is going to be asking Annalise for some support here. So, hey, Annalise, I know you aren't usually able to help, but can you just try this time? I'm really having a hard time at work. No one is appreciating my talents. I don't know how you can really help, but I just need somebody to hear me out. Try not to say anything stupid, however. And so in this case, Annalise might hear something like that and really like, I would fully support her if she just like completely like left after this. Like, I can't imagine this is the first time that this has happened. This is probably a very negative cycle, and it seems very much perpetuated by Sam. That he's just kind of saying like, oh, like I mean, you suck at this, but I don't have anyone else to turn to. Like that is a very negative way of seeking support. Yes, you still want that support. Yes, you can still like get that support potentially, like, and maybe you have like such a gem of a partner that's like able to sort through that and be like, okay, like I know that Sam is not being authentic here, not saying things that he means, but he does still need help, so I'm going to stand by him. And maybe people should do that for some bit, but like also like you never have to put up with that. So I would hope that Annalise doesn't put up with something like that. I mean, the show she definitely doesn't. But so again, what's happening here? So if we come back to this idea of romantic competence, we can see that there is something missing here. I think in this case, it's probably this idea of insight and learning within the relationship. Has Sam been able to learn, and has Julius been able to learn? I would say for Julius, yes, he's absolutely been able to learn. He's probably in the past said things in weird kind of ways, and like maybe even sort of like in backhanded ways, like what Sam was kind of doing. Like, hey, like, what do you actually have to offer here? I think go ahead, like leading with your best foot forward, even when you are in pain and even when you are like going through something, like you can still be respectful of your partner. And that's a skill, right? That you have to like learn over time through various experiences. And it seems like here, Julius has done that. And whether that means like from his previous partners or even like other experiences that he's had with Viola, I think he's gotten there, right? Whereas Sam has not quite gotten there. He's probably just doing the same kind of like habitual like pattern over and over and over again, and like maybe has even gotten worse and worse as time has gone by. Instead of changing something, he is now just like really going in on this idea that like, hey, like you need to help me, even though you have nothing like to actually like nothing of value to offer here. So yeah, I mean, it's gross, right? Simply put, this idea of like not being able to learn and to have that mutual respect to be able to control yourself enough for your partner. You're never entitled to anything, and so we have to remember those kinds of things, right? Like it doesn't matter how hard of a day that you had, like you can't just go off on your partner. Like I think sometimes, I mean, we feel like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, is that actually going to help you? Is that going to help the situation? Probably not, right? So that's basically what I wanted to do here. Is I wanted to use these kind of scenarios, and like I mean, I don't know if I actually said this, but like for the stuff that Viola and Julius went through, like that's all based on like actual things that like have happened in their lives. Like Viola has very much said like Julius is the reason that like I was able to get over my anxiety of moving to LA. Like she had a lot of anxiety with it. So I imagine, like, even with as great as Viola is, or even as great as we know her as she is today, and it seems like Julius had like a good hand in that, and great, right? Like, I mean, he was solid enough to be able to support this other person, and probably a reason for that is because of this romantic competence. Whereas Sam and Annalise, they end on a very very horrible note. I don't know if you've seen the show. I will not spoil it if you have not seen it, but they do end up getting into some very rough situations, especially at the end. Okay, so um, yeah, like I said, like that's all that I wanted to do for today. Hopefully, you've gotten something about how to ask for support, how to also give support, and hopefully like you also like start to like just think in your own life about some of these things about how competent are you. Maybe you can ask yourself that question. Are you learning from your previous experiences? Are you just kind of like stuck in your own patterns? Are you believing in this relationship and both of your parts when it comes to this? And then also, are you able to regulate yourself when it comes to these kind of situations? Hopefully you can answer very positively, but if not, that's also okay. These things are not just like they don't just happen, right? They're not inherent in humans. And so hopefully you can work on that if you're not quite there yet. And so we have one more week left when it comes to romantic relationships for this month. I might continue romantic relationships because there's so much more to talk about when it comes to all these things. So maybe there's just more techniques that I'll focus on in the next month. But for next week, I'm going to be talking about something even more positive, I think. So support is positive enough in some ways, but this is all still all like about like negative situations. How do you support somebody in a positive situation? What do you do when someone is telling you about good news in their lives? And of course, that's going to be impacting your relationship as well. It's not just about the negatives, it's about all these positives that are going on. So I'll talk about that. And if you want more on the science behind all this, feel free to check out some of my other work. And that's going to be on roomforresearch.com, as well as through social media at Room for Research. And until then, thank you all for joining. And I hope that you've gotten something from this. Until next week. Bye for now.
the sun will breathe. Perfect sense.